just thought I'd play a little bit. That song at the start of that little thing that I was playing was actually off my most recent album, The Homemade Space Machine. Check it out. It's basically an album of rockabilly fingerpicking with effects and stuff, like probably stuff that you're interested in if you're checking out this video. Also, I have a Patreon. It's really worth checking out. Transcriptions of fingerpicking stuff, rockabilly, psychobilly, full transcriptions of a bunch of psychobilly tunes as well if you're getting into that style. Today, we're going to be looking at the Strymon El Capistan. I'm going to also talk about using it with a bit of overdrive as well, overdrive going into the delay. And for that, we'll be using this MTGLA Fender pedal. I know nothing about it. I know a moderate amount about that one, but we'll more just be using that as an overdrive. I did have that on before during that other video. I should specify that. I actually did a whole video talking about this and forgot that I had that on, so I'm going to do it again in the interest of clarity. That was a little play on words there. So anyway, this is a Super 1606 as well. This is probably the amp I use the most these days for all my YouTube videos. It's brilliant. I'm gonna bring the camera over and we're gonna have a good look at this pedal. I'm gonna walk you through the features. Now, obviously, it's gonna be with a rockabilly, psychobilly slant. That's kind of what I do, but we might even muck around with a few different things and get a little U2 or something, or maybe not. But let's just see. Hope you enjoy it. Okay, so I'm gonna just quickly one more thing before we start. This pedal was repaired by Simon Cotter. I had a little bit of a mishap with it and he fixed it. He's a legend. Simon from 8T's Guitars. I'll put a link in the description. If you need anything fixed, he's the guy to go to. Obviously, if you're in Victoria, but you could probably send stuff to him from all over Australia, probably anywhere in the world if you want to. Yeah, certainly, obviously, if you're local, he's the guy. So now, at the moment, everything is set to pretty much 0. You've got all these functions down here. I do recommend checking out my review and discussion about slapback with the Wazacraft delay. I really get into the fundamentals of how I like to set a delay. And I'll do a similar thing here, but it's also probably good to watch that one as well to give a bit more background. But having said that, so the first thing I'm going to do is bring up the mix, because we can put that all the way up, but won't make a difference if we don't have some delay mixed in. So let's maybe put them both up a little so we can start to hear. Okay, so it's about here. We don't hear it a lot. Before that, it's quite low. So I'm just going to go to about there. That's probably a beginning point. Start getting that rockabilly-esque level of delay. This controls how loud that delay is, and this controls the time between when you strike the note and when you hear that note repeat. So obviously, if we put this all the way up. So obviously that kind of length is not what we're looking for if we're looking for that slapback kind of sound. But I will explore some other stuff today anyway. First thing I'd probably be doing is getting the mix satisfactory. Although you're probably not going to know till you get your time satisfactory how much of that you want in the mix. So let's say, I think tempo is a really important thing, and this is what I talk about in the video with the DM2. But let's say we're going. So that at the moment, boom, 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 that's sort of rolling along at crotchets at that speed. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't want that. I actually want that double that speed for that nice slapback sound. So there we go. See, it's sort of a halfway point that sounds. So that's a nice kind of setting for a very simple rockabilly sound, and obviously that's at a fairly low mix. Let's see if we put that right up. It's a really much more in-your-face slapback. So now we can really hear some of the tape quality coming through. And I was very fortunate recently to actually play through a full-tone tape tube echo, and it's really made me appreciate how good this is. I didn't have this for a little while. It took a while to sort this one out, but The full tone tape echo that I got to play the other day, it's the tube tape echo, is, you know, it's a legit article, you know, in terms of tape echo. Getting this back recently, just after playing that, was a spin out, because this thing was, it is so close, so much closer than I remembered it being. So anyway, now we've got that kind of what I'm going to do is, let's introduce a little overdrive at this kind of a setting. So I'm going to put that on. There we go. Now what I'm going to do, I'm on the middle position with my Gretsch here with the big dynasonic pickup. So I'm going to go to the bridge, because with a bit of overdrive, it's kind of a bit more saturated. I'll just turn that down slightly. That sound once you start to get a little bit of that mushy kind of sound. So I'm going to do two things. I want you to hear I want to talk about what the single means, and I want you to really hear the quality of what a tape delay is all about, and I guess explain more as to why I think this does a really good job. So we'll start with this off, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring the mix up a little more, and I'm going to spread out that time. So if I strum that, we get nothing because I turned my guitar down. More time. Okay, what I'm going to do is put the repeats up. So this is the first thing we want to talk about here, more repeats. Now I had it at minimal repeats. More repeats obviously just repeats more. See, now you're hearing sort of a third and a fourth, but it's quite degraded. As I put that up more, it just continues. Now if I'm playing this, bring that time back to where we had it. That to me is too mushy and does not work, especially live. You cannot do that. This is probably, as you put those repeats up, good if you're kind of ringing chords out or doing something like that. Yeah, to me, I'm not a big fan of that. I'd probably have that a little lower. And then once we introduce overdrive, that's not too bad. That's probably okay. Okay. That's a cool sound. That's probably okay. That's probably on the border. That's probably borderline where I like it in terms of the repeats. You know, and it's all a combination, repeats, mix, and time. If we bring the mix down, we can get away with probably more repeats because it's a bit more subtle. Doesn't quite interfere as much. So it's always about achieving a balance, I think, of the time, the mix, and the repeats for your basic signal. Yeah. Now I'll take the overdrive back off. In terms of the actual tape quality of a delay and why it's quite an attractive thing, if I put that time up a little bit and the mix up a little bit, and we start playing with these guys, we can start to get more of an idea of what tape quality is about. Now, if you listen to the way that degrades, sounds like it's warping ever so slightly, that's what tape machines are all about and what makes them cool. It's actually, obviously, their imperfections that make them great versus, say, a digital delay. Now, just quickly, there's obviously a lot of stuff going on here. We're working with the single head right now. Now, I want you to imagine we have a tape machine, or think about your Walkman. If you've ever looked in one of those, you've got these little things that look like little magnets or something. They're heads, they record the sound, and as it passes the next head will play the sound, and then there's a third head that will delete the sound. So they're your three. I think that's how it works. I'm really not particularly au fait with that side of things, but at least metaphorically, it certainly makes sense to me. So imagine that you've got your 3 points, records it here, plays it here, wipes it there. With the single one, imagine you've got a sliding point for the second point where the music's played. So the first one, it's recorded, and then you're hearing the second one. So if we adjust the time, all we're doing is sliding that second head away. So as the tape, the actual tape passes through, there's more of a gap, more of a delay. So that's like we've spread out the actual tape heads. Now, so yeah, I guess for the purpose of this video, we can kind of just stick with A and B. I guess imagine that if they're extending the time by putting it on B, that we can shorten it and probably get the same thing. So if I go to A, that's now shorter, I can lengthen it, right? So to get a similar thing, we had to go a little further up. We had to open the time up a little more and lengthen that time to sound similar to B. But it actually gives you a different sound quality. I'd love to actually pick someone from Strymon's brain about why that would be. Yeah, can't answer it though. That's definitely not in my pay grade or wheelhouse. So now that's the single head that slides. And let's remain with that for a moment and muck around with tape age and wow and flutter. So the tape age, I want you to imagine that you've got a fresh brand new tape, and that would be down here. And then over here, we've got an older tape. So let's listen to the way that sound degrades with an older tape. Oh, you can hear straight away, it's muffled and kind of woolly. And it also gives a bit of a wow, wow, wow. It's not a sharp and neat representation. I tend to like that on the lower sound. This pedal still sounds very tapey. You know, they've set it up really well. It gives you a tone straight away. Like, as soon as you plug in this pedal, and even if you have a very short delay, it's really got that sound like you're playing now through some kind of tape machine to a degree. So as we bring this up, you can hear that gets warmer, warmer, woolly, and there's not much clarity to that at all. Now, wow and flutter, this is basically as you get inconsistencies in tape speed and things like that, you get inconsistencies, wow and flutter. So set low. If I bring this up, you can hear the pitch changing a little bit. Bring the time out a little, mix up a little. And you can hear various inconsistencies, more to do with probably the tape speed than the tape age. So your basic settings of these three, if we want to start coloring the tone a bit more with a deeper tape characteristics, we're using these two. Okay, now the next thing is that if we use these two controls here and we press them both in, we can adjust, I'm trying to remember now, low end contour. So this will tighten up the bottom end of the repeats. And then if I go to the other extreme, see how that sounds. This could actually be of your dry signal. I may have just got that wrong. Let's just try that again. Have a listen. Absolutely, yeah. So this tightens up the bass end of your dry signal, which of course affects your repeats. But that's a much brighter sound. And I'd say with the overdrive, we're going to hear that again. Let's check that out. So we've got... We'd never use it like that. I would never use it like that, to be honest, but... Okay, so that's, that does affect the tone of your dry signal with a low contour. You could probably hear as much about that as I can. So I'm gonna now have a look at the, let's come out of this. I felt like when that was wound up, it was, it felt a little bit more subdued with the overdrive, but then more twangy in the top without the overdrive. But then when I wound it back, it sounded a bit more raw. So yeah, I guess as you wind it over, it kind of pulls in the bottom end. But then as you wind to the left, it kind of opens things up a little bit in some ways. So Anyway, that's what that does. That's with the bypass function, holding both of those, we get a low end contour. With this one, we get tape bias, which is basically the clarity and headroom, more or less. Like as we're over here, we're going to get a better repeat, as if the tape's contacting real nicely on the head, and everything's set up right. And then if we go the other way, it's quite dull and not really doing the greatest job. So let's have a listen to that. Give it more repeats. But if I put this, I think I didn't quite do that right before. Let's try that. Yeah, so you can really hear what's going on there. Then if I bring this all the way over here, it's just a bit more mushy from the very beginning. And just fades away with a little less tops. So that's that. I don't really use that one, to be honest. I haven't played with that a lot. This one here I really like in the secondary function. We put both of these in. This is tape crinkle. So as we wind this way, there's more inconsistencies, imperfections in the tape, just more issues basically, funnily enough, and I love that. So that translates, in my opinion, to a real growl. You can hear a little bit of wavering. Once we put the overdrive on, you'll hear the growl that I'm talking about, which is amazing too, how well this unit interacts with, you know, whatever you put through it. I'm not getting the growl. I'm not getting it. Why? Why am I not getting the growl? Let's put the tape age up. I do not know why I'm not getting the nice growl. Let me try something here. Let's bring the tape bias back to a more fresh sound. Let's try that again. Back. There it is. That I love that. There it is. I mustn't have just timed my push right when I first wound it across. So as we wind that right around with these two pushed in, it makes the tape essentially more inconsistent, and imagine that there's contamination on the tape, or the tape itself has maybe been damaged at some point, but it's still in use. And so yeah. Okay, again, I wouldn't really use it at that. So let's come back to that slapback sound. You probably won't hear a lot of these details as much in a... No, I like that. That's fat and dirty old tape to me. You know, our tape age is up. The tape crinkle, I wound that right up as well. Obviously, tape age, we don't need to do the bypass, the secondary function for. Our repeats are nice and low. Now that's that Daryl High MS kind of Brian Setzer, I should say Brian Setzer really, that sound right there, that really cool tape echo with a little bit of drive. Now, it's a little confusing sometimes, because if you think about it, you'd maybe have a delay pedal going into the amp, and then the amp would have some kind of drive characteristics, which is really how I've set this up, to just be like a warm kind of tweed sort of amp feel. And I have no idea what this pedal is meant to do. But I think I'm getting that vibe. I'm happy with that. But it's kind of weird when you think about it, because you're putting a driven sound into the pedal. It's coming out of the amp. It's a little out of order, but for me, you can really get those great vintage, you know, delay tones, and that really warm, you know, even the overdrive pedal itself warms up all the sound you get from this, so you get that really saturated tape sound. So I think in combination with an overdrive pedal, it's just fantastic, you know. Awesome, love that sound. So I've done everything here on the single tape head. Again, that's just a sliding head. Let me talk very quickly about what the multi and the fixed head. The multi head, imagine we have 3 heads, and we have a head that records, we have the 3 heads that play for the delay, and then we have a final head that probably wipes the sound. This head's not really important, it's the function of the 3 that you've got to think about. Now, the way this one works is that in A, we're using heads. We're using heads 1 and 2. Let's just, again, stretch out the time a little so you can stretch out more. Let's give it more repeats. You can hear that kind of doubled. Yeah, you can hear that doubled sound of 2 heads playing it. So A uses heads 1 and 2. B uses heads 2 and 3, and you'll really hear this. You can almost imagine that it's skipping the first head altogether, or you can hear it. So this would be a good one for that. I would bring the mix down a little if I was going to do that. Texas shuffle. I really quite like that. I'd probably have the mix down a little more. Just remember, the more wild your sounds get, you can really tame it with the mix, you know. Keep in mind, I've still got the wow and flutter up. I've got the tape age up, so it's a particularly mushy sound. And again, these 3 are fairly simple in terms of just regular delay. But yeah, the head modes here give us quite a few options. So where we were talking about using heads 2 and 3 with function B on the multi, and then we go to C, and I can't remember what that actually does. Let's have a listen. Oh, that's actually 1 and 3. It's a very tight first one by the sounds of it, and you can kind of really hear that third one. Yeah, it's like skipping the second one. Let me just double check that that's right. Apologies, I'm just scrolling down. Okay, so mode C, correct, 1 and 3. Okay, good. I knew what I was talking about for a second there. That's great. Now, so that covers everything that the multi does. The fixed is an interesting one because the fixed, you've got 2 points for your delay, but instead of sliding those points apart, we just control the speed of the tape as we roll this one backwards and forwards. Hope that makes sense. And this is really cool because you can really hear, well, you can do this with all of them, but this one has a different effect. If you listen, you can hear the tape speeding up and slowing down. I mean, that's absolutely brilliant. I really like that. That's cool. So as we bring that mix up, so I'll just take the overdrive off for a second. And it sounds thin and no fun anymore, but it's nice and clean. I'll go to the neck and middle pickup. Bit of Led Zeppelin, bit of Jimmy Page there. So you guys, even if you like Rockabilly, you should try and play everything because there's so many cool things to learn in all styles. I'm a big fan of that sort of thing. Okay, so we've gone to the fixed head, and as I was saying, as you slide this around, as you roll this around, it changes the tape speed. Obviously in the different modes. So like A, it's short, B, it's a little longer, and then C, there's like some kind of looping or recording mode. Or it's also, I think it's actually just a really long, a much longer delay. Yeah, it's just a much longer delay. So short, tight, longer, longer again, okay? So that's probably that. In fact, on my on the album I mentioned before, on the Homemade Space Machine song, I made this tune, and it's very Chet style. Like if I don't have any delay, I'm actually just playing, I'm going, So I'm just kind of alternating these two fingers and playing melodies with that. We introduced the delay. Let's put the overdrive and the delay and have a listen. It sounds incredible. That's a soft push button, and I nearly fell off my chair trying to get the hard press vibe out of it. Really cool. So that's probably one of the only times I use a much longer delay. Generally, it's always just about some kind of slapback kind of thing, so I'd probably rather be there. So one more thing I want to talk about too, aside from just a slapback, like aside from that sort of thing, fun there. There's also just thickening up your tone. So we pull that back so it's nice and tight. Keep the repeats low. Mix doesn't need to be up real high. You don't want to lose too much of your dry signal, but because there is a point with your mix where you lose your dry signal altogether. You can hear that swell of the delay because there's no initial tone. Some cheesy noodling around. So, I forgot what I was actually talking about there. Oh yeah, just thickening up your tone. That's the slapback thing, but if we bring that down more, you can see that just fattens up your tone a little bit. You may want less tape character with that. You may want it just a bit more of a clearer, cleaner kind of delay with low repeats. And then it starts to operate more or less as a, like almost like a really tight reverb. Oh, speaking of reverb, I forgot one thing. If we hold both of these, we actually get to use this as a reverb, which is really cool. Okay, that's really high, you know, it's quite a high cut reverb too. I wonder if there's a way to actually adjust the cut of that reverb, because it's pretty brutal. Have a really quick look here. Yeah, okay, so good news. That was really, as soon as I played that, I was like, whoa, that's quite cutting. But you can use this to reduce the overall cut of everything. If we get this and we go like that, your whole tone's a bit more pleasant, but I think also just that spring reverb is just way too high at that point, so we can bring that there. I don't really dig spring reverb that's that vicious. But let's just experiment with this, because I'm pretty sure this will give you a much higher cut. Barely hear it, I'll just turn the amp up a little. Okay, here we go. Bring that down, let's just see what effect that had. I'm not really hearing anything from that. I'm going to just put the overdrive on. I think you'll hear it a bit more now. Oh yeah, straight away. I want to take that reverb right out now. I'm just not digging it, to be honest. It did not do what I wanted it to do. There you go. There's your high pass, high cut type thing there. It's a much more upper, upper frequency signals right there. The mix does, whenever you're using those secondary functions, you aren't adjusting that. So that says mix full. It's not full. Okay. It's it was wherever it was before I pressed those two buttons. So it's probably about there. So that's the idea of that, and see, this actually hadn't adjusted the time because I had these two in when I wound it round to adjust the spring reverb. So I don't use the secondary functions a heck of a lot. As you can see, I took that spring reverb away pretty much straight away. It's a little too sharp and piercing for me, but it is very consistent with those old, reverb, surfy kind of reverb sounds. So that's by no means a criticism. It's just not my thing. So and that high pass thing, really cool if you want that more magnetic tape echo delay. Think Les Paul and Chet Atkins probably in the 60s. I'm not a big fan of that tone either. I'm actually going to back that off straight away. So I'm taking the high pass straight back out now, and I'll put it back to where it was mix-wise. So there we go. And just quickly talking about the overdrive pedal here. I've just basically treated this like an amp. I think of it like a Fender, some sort of Fender amp, and I've got all the settings the way I want them. I like a more tighter kind of sound. It gives you an option to have a tight thing there. But look, I probably could have done this whole review with something like a TS9. It would have been fine. Would have been pretty similar. Just having a little bit of warm drive going into the pedal. But this pedal's pretty cool. I dare say, I honestly, when I look at this pedal, I think that Fender took some cues from Strymon with their nice casings and, dual stage overdrive type ideas here with well, it's a little different, I guess, but you've got a boost function, so you can, with a different level, so it gives you that secondary boost function, which is really cool. But yeah, it's actually a really good pedal. I like it, it's good. So anyway, back to the main star of the show. I'm gonna just finish up by dialing in a nice little slap back. Let's just get that where I want it. Bring the mix back a little, tape age up. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to go to the single. Let's go for my homemade space machine thing again. The machine is, this is the machine is dying off. So I guess that's about it, guys. I just, yeah, I've pretty much gone through everything I can think of. I've talked about the different heads, all the functions on it that I use for Rockabilly and Psychobilly. Obviously with Psychobilly, as we get faster, we want to reduce that time, keep it really, really tight. Yeah, that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please check out the Patreon, comment, you know, help that video get the shares and the interactions so that it spreads around and people get something useful, more people get something useful out of it. Thanks for watching, and check out my